Available at hightimes.com and finer bookstores.
Mary, quite contrary. How does her garden grow? Don't ask me. I'm just the voiceover guy. Ask High Times Senior Cultivation Editor Danny Danko in our Normal Show Live's Cultivator's Corner.
All right, we're ending up the month of August. I can't believe August is almost over. So on the last Friday of the month, we get a chance to speak with Danny Danko out in New York City at the High Times offices. How you doing, Danny?
Hey, I'm great. We actually have the day off. I'm out at the driving range here in the Rockaways.
Oh.
We're all getting ready for the hurricane by hitting some golf balls and stocking up on all the essential strains we're going to need for our little hurricane that's coming.
Yeah, I know. First you guys get an earthquake on the East Coast. Now you got a major hurricane coming. What did you do to piss off God?
I don't know. I'm expecting a plague of locusts next.
Hey, I want to let you know that the High Times Presents Free Weed with Danny Danko podcast has become extremely popular, and everybody's listening to it on Wednesdays at 5 here, 8 o'clock on the Eastern time zone there. What's it been like for you putting this together? Having a good time?
Yeah, I know. It's been fun. I mean, it's definitely a learning experience, and I feel like, definitely getting better at it as the shows go on. But, it's fun. I mean, it definitely gives me a healthy respect for what you and Tim and people do to be so many episodes deep and to be doing it live and daily. I mean, it's just, it feels like a full-time gig doing a weekly tape show. So I don't know how you guys pull it off, but it's great. I mean, it's definitely been a lot of fun. I mean, we're going to give you the cultivation info, but I like to mix in the activism news and a few interviews here and there.
Yeah. So as far as what's going on with Danny Danko, any new things to tell us before we jump right into the questions?
Nothing super crazy. I mean, we're between. We have our September issue that's going off newsstands right now, which is like our gear guide for growers with all our staff awards for grow equipment, and then October is just now on newsstands, and that's got some interesting articles. As far as me, I'm hoping to go to Spain. I'm still, the Michigan thing is changing daily, so we're keeping a close ear on that for our Detroit Cup that's coming up in October. Just to make sure, we don't run afoul of any kind of legal trouble and those dispensaries being raided. I'm sure you've mentioned.
Right. Well, I was wondering how that appeals court decision might affect the Detroit Cup coming up. Any news yet?
Yeah, I mean, we've been talking to, I know Matt Abel, the lawyer. He's kind of our guy there, and he's been talking to a lot of the people from the dispensaries, and some of them have closed, a couple have been raided, but there's some that are still open, and they're just, basically kind of testing to see what's going to happen. And we on Friday, or I guess on Thursday, yesterday, we thought, it's still pending this appeal, and that's not until November, so we kind of thought we had this window. But right now, who knows? We're just waiting to see what happens tomorrow and Monday, and it's definitely not the type of decision that's in our favor at all. And a lot of those people I've met on my trip to Ann Arbor to do a grow clinic, and they're really good people. They're creating jobs. They're, helping families, helping patients. And it just seems like such a waste of time and resources and energy to harass these people, especially in a place like Michigan that's, got a lot of economic issues going on.
No kidding. Yeah, they could use a growth industry there, if you'll pardon the pun. All right, let's get into the questions here with Danny Danko. We're taking live questions in our chat room on Ustream. It helps if you put Q colon in front of your Q colon space in front of your question, because then it puts a little question icon. It makes it easy for us to pick them out. Or you can call in live here, 971-533-7111. And a question here from one of our Ustream viewers asks, what is the single most important factor in determining the flavor or taste of patient-grown meds?
Wow. I mean, I guess if I had to pick just one, it would be genetics, because ultimately, even if you're the best grower in the world, if you're not growing something with the genetics that you want, the flavors and the tastes that you're looking for, then you're not going to get that. So I think that's where it all starts, is genetics.
Okay.
And there's a lot of questionable genetics out there, and there's a lot of people growing bag seed stuff because it's easy. They found it for free in a bag and they grew it out, but that doesn't necessarily make it as good as the bud that was in that bag. A lot of times it's the result of stress or Hermy kind of genetics, and it might end up not being the flavor that you're looking for. So I think I'd go with genetics.
Okay.
If I had to pick just one.
We have a question from Trickster Phillips, who wants to know what, if any, are the benefits of adding genetics from the autofloweringruderalis subspecies?
Well, the benefits of it are being able to grow in harsher climates and higher up, places like Canada and Alaska. And, you could pretty much, any place that will support plant life, you can't go above the tree line and you can't go above, the Arctic Circle, but you can grow those plants almost anywhere. You're definitely reducing the potency of the plant by adding ruderalis.
Okay.
The idea is you're either in a harsh climate and tough conditions, and you need to have this short season plant. The other benefit is it's done 90 days after you plant it. So regardless of light period, regardless of if you plant it in the spring, you can harvest it in June and July rather than September and October. So those are the benefits. I mean,
okay.
The bad thing about them is it's kind of just a lazy. If you're in a place like, I know they're very popular in Spain, they're very popular throughout Europe, these autoflowering strains, and I think it has to do with just a little bit with laziness. Like they want to plant it and they want to walk away and they want to come back and harvest. And
right.
And I think that they're taking out a few really important steps. But they're either going to make that into hash or they're they don't have that tradition of super kind bud that we have, and so that they're okay with settling for 8% THC and decent for something that they don't have to do a lot of work.
Yeah.
So I guess those are the advantages and disadvantages of autoflowering and feminized seeds as well.
Okay. Well, we got a question here from our live studio audience. Phil's in the house here, and he had a question for you. So what's on your mind, Phil?
Hey, Danny.
Hey, Phil. How's it going?
Pretty good. Hey, I was wondering what you thought about bacterial compost teas opposed to fungal compost teas.
I mean, there's so many kind of custom ways to do it, and there's bacterial, fungal, and there's combinations. I would say some people recommend molasses, and some people say don't put in molasses. I guess my idea is always to mix it up. If you're going to use fungal one day, then try a different one the next day. And as far as molasses goes, you don't necessarily have to use it every time. But I don't think it could hurt, and the microbes feed off of the sugars and stuff and multiply. So, I think everything in moderation with compost tea, and, that's about as much as I really, I guess can say about that.
Okay. All right. We have a question here coming in from...
Sounds like Obama.
That's all I can say about that, yeah.
That's all I can say about that. That's the new... you're doing a heck of a job, Brownie.
Heck of a job, Brownie, right. Ty Stick wants to know, what do you know about Exhale CO2 production bags?
I know that, there's also the CO2 boost buckets. It's basically like a mushroom...
Sure.
Kit that gives off CO2 over time to your plants, and I think they're great, actually. I mean, any product like that can provide CO2 in smaller kind of rooms and closets and stuff, I think it's really recommended, because in big rooms you're going to need 2 or 3 bags or 2 or 3 buckets. But in a closet situation, typically, you're not going to go out and get a big tank of CO2 or a CO2 generator, that burns off of propane and stuff. It's a lot of hassle to go through for a small grow, but the benefits of supplementing with CO2 are really good. And these products kind of stemmed out of, in the old days, people would like brew beer or keep like rabbits underneath their hydro table and stuff, just to have that extra like CO2 gas. And there was also that process of adding baking soda to water, and so there were all these homemade kind of remedies for supplementing with CO2, and it's just nice to have it now in product form that's affordable, and it's like 1 per grow. It's almost, and the CO2 boost, it's all compostable and degradable, and the bucket can be reused and stuff. And I think it's the same way with those bags. So I think they're great.
All right. Well, let's get another question here. I like this one. It has nothing to do with marijuana. Are you often mistaken for that guy from American Pickers?
Yeah, it's not the first time that I've heard that, but it's also really been part of the inspiration for losing some weight too. Every time I hear that or Kevin Smith, it's like fuel for my workouts and stuff.
Okay. Great question here. If 2 growers have the exact setups with the exact clones, everything's exactly the same between the 2 of them, but one grower had tastier nugs, what did he do different?
It could be, if it sounds like everything else was pretty much the same, it could be the drying and the curing process.
Yeah.
That really has a lot to do with the final outcome. And doing that wrong, you can wind up with really bad tasting nugs, and if you do it right, you won't. So, I would think that maybe it's part of, it would be something from that. If it was the same cuts and, similar growing situations, then it's got to be the curing and the drying process.
Mm-hmm. Okay. L. Angel would like to know, what is the best indica dominant strain to grow if you're a first timer?
Well, indica dominant strains that are good for first timers, anything typically with the name Afghan in it is always going to be somewhat of that's a little bit of a generalization, but hash plant is one that's very simple, and basically 55, 60 days, fills out really nicely, very resistant to overfeeding and overwatering and pests and mold and stuff. So I think I'd have to say like hash plants is probably the preferred choice. But there's a lot of indicas tend to be easier, and I definitely recommend for beginner growers, start with something indica dominant and then work your way into sativa dominant, and so hopefully you'll have a quiver of mother plants they'll represent both sides of the spectrum too, eventually.
Okay. Let's see. Captain Keelhaul would like to know, plasma lights, are they ready for prime time?
Well, there's definitely been a lot of advances going on. I know Nico writes a lot in High Times, my colleague, about light science, and he's really been on top of the whole plasma and LED and sort of this new technology in lighting. I'm the type of guy that just hangs an HID light because that's what I've always done, or that's what I've always recommended. And so plasma lights are getting better, and I've talked to him about this pretty extensively. He would know a little more about the science of it, but they're not quite there, I would say, for like the consumer market, but they're being used in big, huge grow rooms in like Amsterdam, and Phillips and Gavita are working on that, I think. But I can get back to you next month, and I'll do a little more research on the plasmas because Nico's got all the up-to-date information.
Okay, sounds good. And one of our final questions here for Danny Danko, Senior Cultivation Editor of High Times Magazine. This one, I'm not sure, maybe this is Carrie's question, but are there any pests that you just have to say, these are done, throw them out and start over from the beginning? Or can just about anything be treated?
It's not even so much about the pest as how bad the infestation has gotten. Because if you catch spider mites early, you can eradicate them or you can control the population. But if you already have webbing, on your buds and stuff, then at that point you're beyond the point of redemption. But I mean, lately I've heard root aphids are a big issue, especially in Colorado, and I mean they attack plants in soil and hydro, and those guys are just like at their wits' end with like closing down grow rooms because of these things. And I've never actually even seen one. I've just sort of heard about them and read about them online, and it's become a big new kind of one of the pests that is making headlines or whatever in cultivation because they attack the roots, and there's really not a lot of things you can do to get rid of them.
Okay.
So I would say spider mites, if they've gotten bad, are really tough to get rid of, and these new root aphids as well are really tough. Pretty much everything else, white flies, thrips, things like that, you can pretty much get rid of them. You just have to be very vigilant and stay on it.
Okay. And we'll wind things up here with a question from Pookie420, who just would like to get a basic primer here on the difference between metal halide lights and the high-pressure sodium. All
right. I don't know too much about the science of those. I mean, I just know that metal halides, both are high-intensity discharge lights that use vapors and gases and stuff rather than filament. And the metal halides are the whitish blue light, and a lot of times people will do their vegetative growth stage under metal halide because of that. It keeps the internodes short and keeps the plant short and stocky because it mimics that kind of summer light. And then the high-pressure sodium is the orangey, kind of yellowish version of high-intensity discharge lighting that more mimics the fall. And so that's the one people usually use for the flowering period. And at this point, I mean, they have mixed spectrum bulbs. Sonagro, I think, makes a 430 watt that's mixed with a certain percentage of metal halide and high-pressure sodium, and those you can use. And there's even ones that are switchable back and forth. You change the bulb, and then you can switch the ballast to HBS or MH. But basically the difference is, bluish and white light from the metal halide, and that's more for vegetative, and yellowish orange light from the high-pressure sodium, and that's more for flowering.
All right. Well, we got about 30 seconds here, Danny. So coming up on your next episode of Free Weed from Danny Danko, what do we have to look forward to?
We usually get together on Monday to figure out. We tape on Tuesday, and then we air on Wednesday. I'm hoping for a good mix of somebody from the activism scene and somebody from the cultivation scene. We've had some good guests so far. So we also have people from the entertainment world as well. I mean, we've had a couple of rappers and Bob Cantrell, comedian, and so we just kind of mix it up. It's a cannabis variety show with a focus on cultivation. Right on.
Well, check it out at hightimes.com/freeweed if you'd like more information. And Danny Danko, thanks again for joining us here on Normal Show Live.
Hey, thanks a lot, Russ. Thanks for having me.
And good luck batten down the hatches for that hurricane, my man.
Oh, absolutely. We're going to go check out some surfers right now at Rockaway Beach, and then we're going to scurry back home and, start the bong process.
All right. Take care, Danny. That's all the time we have here for Normal Show Live for Wiz Khalico, Ganja John, Cannabis Carrie, Cannabis Cure UK, and Phil. I'm Radical Russ. Thanks for joining us. Stay tuned for Hour 2 if you're listening live. For those of you on the podcast, thanks for joining us, and we'll talk to you next week. Until next time, take care of each other, tokers.
This is Normal Show Live, the voice of the Marijuana Nation.
Take it out one more time. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes downstream.